Hi, I'm Grant Ervin, and welcome to the Grant Street Experience, our podcast about the interesting people and things that we talk about here on Grant Street at the Great City County Building. I have my co-host with me, Rebecca Kiernan.
Hello.
And I also have my friend and colleague, James Hill.
Friend.
Come on. I told James I'm wearing a tie for him today, and he said I should wear it every day. So, James, thanks for being one of our first inaugural guests
Happy to be here,
on
man.
the Grant
This is
Street
lovely.
Experience. Yeah. So we've been having this conversation. Rebecca was our test guest, and she loved it so much she came back. So we're hoping that maybe you
time.
could be a frequent guest, frequent flyer here. Maybe if you could start off with folks just telling about who you are, special assistant to the mayor. Kind of what goes into that role, and
Gosh, what doesn't go
into that role. But tell us a little bit about James Hill.
Yeah, so lifelong Pittsburgher, grew up in Highland Park, living in Manchester these days.
The Chester.
Is that what they call it?
That's what I call it.
The Chester,
Yeah.
as they say on the streets. You can see Grant hangs out there often. So I've been
What
with
street are you on? You're not that you have to tell, but Liverpool.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You don't have to give the
Can you
address.
give your full
Little
address,
invasive.
please?
Name, rank, serial number.
Zip code. And where do you keep
Zip
your
code.
extra key?
It's under the floor mat.
I'm on Sheffield, which
Sheffield.
is a lovely. I love Manchester. Beautiful
Yeah.
homes. Very into architecture and history, and the war streets in Manchester just gorgeous.
Yeah.
The brownstones and the row homes.
Awesome.
Been with the mayor now. It's going on 5 years. Might be 5 years. I can't really remember now. Yeah.
Wow.
And the bulk of it is just every day. When you're mayor, everybody wants something. So we're going out and about, and I'm with them a good chunk of that time to bring as much information as we can back to the city county building,
Right.
Whether they're asking for their streets to be repaved or an issue they've had with a police officer or this, that, and the other. The bulk of it is when you're mayor, there's already so much on your mind. You can't
Right.
possibly
Keep it all in
also solve everybody's problems you meet on the road.
there. So you're like the second brain for the mayor in many cases to like.
We spend more than our share of time together. But we
Getting
we,
him from A to B, but also making sure the information comes back, right?
We'll never be to be on time, but we'll always make an effort to get to be on time.
That we will guarantee you. We're going to make the effort. That's like the Pittsburgh way, right?
Yeah, it's a fun job, and he's a great boss to work for, and we've gotten to meet so many cool people, do so much cool stuff, presidents and political candidates and all sorts of great things.
That's
and
awesome.
people
And
from
you're
all
there.
over the world.
You're there for all of that too.
Yeah. If these walls could talk, we've added our own stories.
Is
as I say.
there anybody in particular that you've met where you're like, whoa,
So this is so funny, but it was Edgar Snyder.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, Edgar Snyder?
Edgar Snyder?
Like, I was like I've met presidents and
Yeah.
like candidates and all sorts of people, but we were at a party at the Pennsylvania, and I can't remember what it was for. I want to say it might have been like a Children's Hospital fundraiser or something
Okay.
like that. And Edgar Snyder walked in, and I was like, oh my God, it's
Like-
Edgar Snyder. Like, I was like stunned.
Yeah.
And the only time ever in history, I said, Mayor, can you take a picture of us? And I took a picture with Edgar Snyder at that party at the Pennsylvania. And I
That's
was,
pretty
like,
awesome.
So
Did you chat
excited
with
to
him?
meet him. Yeah, we spoke for a few minutes.
Was
and
he
I
cool?
He was very cool. He was so nice, and gosh, doesn't look nearly as old as he must be, that we all know.
I mean,
So-
he's a fixture in Pittsburgh.
yeah,
right?
he's like, it's like one of those weird things of growing up. Like him and like this, he's just always been a presence in like Pittsburgh lore.
Yeah.
And like you grow up seeing his commercials, and
He's
in
everywhere.
the internet age, he's a meme and a joke everywhere. It was really fun to meet him.
That's awesome. Now you grew up in Highland Park.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Went to Shenley High School.
Alma mater, her we cherish.
Tell me about that. I grew up outside of the city.
Very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. But similar experience with my alma mater. But I'm impressed by Shenley.
Yes.
And
It was the perfect American school.
yeah, I mean, but impressed with the connections people have.
Yeah.
I mean, share that.
It had such a strong hold on people, I don't really know. It's one of those intangible things where you couldn't really give a reason, but like you
Yeah.
said, people who have gone there are, our love for it has been
It's deep.
deep, too deep probably, to be healthy to some extent. But I think a lot of that has to do with, the way the closure went down and how heavily debated it was and how there were so many back and forths. And the debate went on, for years after it was closed, before the district sold it even, like to the
Right.
very last board hearing where they, you know, approved the sale, there was protesting that they shouldn't sell it and that they need to figure out a way to reopen it and everything. And it was, you know, I'd always said the easiest way to describe it is schools are often closed when they are underperforming, not when they are doing well.
Right.
You know, and that it was, I think it felt like something that was really great and diverse and well represented in the city was kind of taken, you know.
Away from us.
Away from us, the greater good and the people.
Now,
of the city.
Is there still a strong alumni connection?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, these days people are just posting in like the Facebook group about nonsense, but you know, the alumni are still very, very strong. We actually, one of the alumnus just wrote a book about the school's history. He's actually a lawyer. He's in and out of this building all the time, Jake Orsick. It's called the Shenley Experiment.
Okay.
And it's actually really interesting because it's not just about the school itself.
The book is out now?
Yeah, it's out there. You should buy it.
Okay.
Are we allowed to sell things on
sure,
government TV?
No, Dave, the director said no.
I don't. You should go to the library and rent it.
Actually, the library was our non-sponsor last week.
Yeah, that's right.
With Rebecca too.
The library app is the best.
Yeah. So go to the library and rent it for free.
Okay.
As well as that new thing about Sophie Maslow. But it's really interesting because it describes in depth, you know, about how socioeconomics shaped the way the schools developed. And I think for city employees, we forget that, you know, in the city's heyday, it was also the school district's heyday, you know, and they were building and developing schools and education at a pace rapid to that of our growth, you know,
because the city was growing.
The city was growing, so public schools were, you know, being built, constructed, and developed out the wazoo.
How old is that building?
It opened in 1916, October 2nd.
Yeah. So just around the same time as the city county.
Yeah, city county building. So like most of the average age of a school, I think in the city is like 1903. But you know, the vast majority of the high schools, the really big institutional ones, were built, you know, in the late teens and early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And it just is very interesting because it's another perspective in how the city grew that I don't think we get because we're not in the school district, you know. But it was very interesting to see how politics has always played a role in where schools go and, you know, where their physical locations are and, you know, what plots of land are put together and little things like who they're named after. Like, it was really interesting. So well worth the read.
You're the guy to ask this about then too. So that development of Shenley, was that concurrent with the development of a lot of the other structures in Oakland at that time?
It was a little bit before, really. You know, I feel like Oakland's really in its second wave. I feel like a development now with the Oaklander recently, you know, and the new Shenley Place apartments.
Have you been there?
I went to the view is, first of all, amazing. You never get that view of Shenley Park.
The Oaklander?
It's a hotel. Is it the restaurant or is that the hotel's name?
The hotel is the Oaklander.
The restaurant, I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's right across from Soldiers and Sailors.
Oh, okay.
Behind the Athletics Association, which is now being renovated in and of itself.
So what's the time? That's what I mean. Like, what's the time period for those buildings?
So like, when they were built or when they were redeveloped?
They were built.
Yeah. So the 1910 through 1920 was when Oakland was being, you know, as its name implies, it was vastly farmland.
Right.
You know, and the cathedral and Shenley and like the Athletic Association were the first buildings to really pop up in that area. Soldiers and Sailors at that point, you know, and then Presby, and then that was really the last of large structures, and then it was the, you know, the mishmash of the little buildings that kind of make up the left-hand side when you're going down Fifth, were the rest at that time. But those were the monumental, you know, structures of the age.
Because the cathedral came in the 30s?
Yeah, they started, I believe, if memory serves me, in the late 20s. I think it may have opened. It was late, either 29 or like very early 30s it opened, yeah.
That's interesting. But, I mean, so it was kind of planned but not planned? Like it just organically occurred?
Yeah, I think it was, you know, I think it started really when Carnegie set up the library there. You know, Pitt was around but not growing nearly as fast. And once Carnegie was looking for like a big plot of land that wasn't downtown for the library, you know, a part of it was he wanted it to be set in a tranquil setting. You know, around that time, Bigelow set up Shenley Park and all that stuff as well. So really, well, the kickoff, I'd say, was Shenley Park.
Okay.
You know, then came the library. And then based upon the library setting up roots, I think that's what created it as an educational hub. I'm not sure Shenley particularly fell into that in the sense. I think eventually it fit in well with the landscape, but I think they were mostly looking for, you know, at that time, the East End school was Peabody and Westinghouse. You know, Westinghouse wasn't around yet, but Peabody was in the East End, so they were looking for, you know, another more central to the east, but, you couldn't go too deep downtown.
So then, Peabody preceded Shenley?
Yeah, Peabody was 1911, it would have been. Fifth Avenue High School was still around in those days.
Yeah.
So there needed to be the between Fifth Avenue and Peabody was where kind of Shenley came from. And this was before Alderdice came to be, or Westinghouse, which were both shortly thereafter. Yeah.
So where does I have a bunch of questions here, but where does your encyclopedic knowledge of this come from?
Well, it's all lies.
It's all lies.
How would you know any better, Grant?
As we go along.
I wouldn't dispute it.
If there's one thing I learned in
Rebecca's
politics,
here to fact check stuff.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start.
She's enthralled.
Your laptop's not even open.
You fooled me.
There's one thing I learned under this roof is if you walk in, just talk with authority. People don't question you.
That's all that matters.
Nobody
So
questions
true.
anything. No, I've always loved, schools particularly. I just find them to be I love public education as a monumental institution of neighborhoods, and I've always, been
And as a topic of scholarship also?
What?
As a topic of scholarship
Yeah,
also?
they represent the city's strength. Cities are in my mind only as strong as the schools that serve their people. So I've always just found them interesting in that time, and Shenley in particular had such a wonderful history with its, part of that history was its epic collapse in the 60s and 70s, and then its rebirth in the 1980s.
What was the epic collapse?
Just just academically, it struggled a lot in the late 70s and 80s, and they did a turnaround program in the late 80s. Where they called it, it was rethemed as the Shenley High School Teacher Center, and it was like the first of its kind in the nation, where all the district's teachers would cycle through Shenley to update their method. So, like every teacher in the district did, like a 60-day stint there.
So it was like a teacher's college.
It was a teacher's college, yeah, and that was at that point, very revolutionary for Pittsburgh and the area. And the great statistic about that is, I think by early 80s, Shenley was second lowest in performing. By the 92, 93, it was second highest performance. So literal, and at that point there were still 10, 12 city high schools. So it leapfrogged a lot
because of that
because
teaching?
of the teacher center. Yeah, it was, and that was also around the time that international baccalaureate and things like that were really starting to become a thing in America, and we were one of the first in
There's
Western
always a
Pennsylvania.
handful of those in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there's only one in Pittsburgh. It's at Obama currently. I don't know about
St. Clair
the suburban.
used to have one?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's way
That's
out
your
there.
area of expertise is the suburbs.
I always remember that.
Yeah.
There was only Shenley. Like I had friends at Shenley and then friends at St. Clair, Upper St. Clair, and
Yes, Upper St. Clair sounds right. I feel like I do remember that one.
yeah. There might have been a third out there, but those
Yeah.
were the two that were well known that had the program.
And Shenley also just had like a really great mix of programs. It was where English as a second language was. It's the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater. So all the ballet students who were, come around from the nation to train at PBT would go to Shenley.
Wow.
So we just had this really great mix of, kids from the deepest roots of Africa and, the most ballet-driven children from Dallas.
Yeah.
And, the IB kids from Bloomfield and Highland Park, and then all the the Sugar Top and Hill kids. So it was just I always thought it was a wonderful just mix of people.
What was the reason given for closing it, for choosing that one to close?
Well, this is only a half an hour program, as I've been told. So
We could do like part one and part two
all right.
if we want.
Well, there's a lot of conversation. There was a lot of rumors about that too, and was the district plotting with UPMC at the time, and all sorts of. But the facilities reason was that it was going to cost too much to renovate, is what the district's reason boiled down to, is that a lot of its systems had reached the end of their life.
Yeah.
It was an old building. It had a lot of asbestos was the firework that they threw around, that there was so much asbestos in Shenley that it would be impossible to renovate without it costing. The district never said anything less than $70 million would be the cost solely to renovate Shenley High School.
Wow.
Which it was a pretty big building. It
Yeah.
was one of the larger schools, and
Now, were you one of the last class?
yeah, so we were considered the last class.
The
So we
last
started
class.
freshman, sophomore at Shenley. Then they shipped us off to Reisenstein to wrap things up.
Remember that.
And then, Reisenstein itself is a
Demolished.
part of time now, too.
Right.
It was lovely, though.
And
really
then
lovely
did you
place.
finish at Obama?
No, so we were the last class of Shenley. So they shut down Shenley in diploma-wise. We got the last diplomas because we were there.
Okay.
And then they were at Reisenstein for 1 or 2 more
That's
years
it.
before moving to Peabody.
Okay.
When they shut down Peabody and moved IB into there, which became Obama today.
Wow.
It's also just so hard to keep track of.
It
There's so many names just aren't even on the buildings they were anymore.
Yeah.
It's just
Or it hasn't the name's on the building, but it's a different name.
It says, the name etched in stone says this, but it's not what that's, known as anymore. And it's even in your neck of the woods, like at Friendship or Montessori is at Friendship School,
Yeah.
What's the other one over there? Miller in the Hill is at the old McKelvey building now, which is...
So it's like Pittsburgh thing, like they're old
things,
they take on new names.
What it used to be known as.
Yeah.
I've always had like a weird thing. Miller closed, well, it didn't close too, but Miller in the Hill, which is at the McKelvey building on Bedford now.
Okay.
Used to be across the hill, kind of diagonal up from Fifth Avenue High, and up where it's off of Reed Street and Miller Street. But yeah, we were the era where things just really started
moving over the
around.
place.
It was wacky times then.
Now, one of the things that's kind of connected to this, I'm going to call it the Shenley mystique, is, and it's related to a bus trip and a plane trip that I was on. So one of my friends, Lena Andrews.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is just, a quick story. This goes full circle. So we're on the bus one morning, and I'm like, hey, Lena, how you doing? She's like, oh, great. My brother was writing a book. If you've known Lena, she's just kind of like matter of fact. And she's like, yeah, my brother wrote a book, and they just picked up the screenplay, and so now they're going to make a movie out of it. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. She's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then fast forward a couple, like a year plus or whatever, I see her husband Scott, and I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? And she's like, yeah, we're going to this movie premiere for Lena's brother. I'm like, oh, that's great. And I like connect the dots, and it's this movie called Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. And just last summer, I never got to see the movie, and I'm flying into Pittsburgh, and I look up, and I'm like, oh, look, here's this movie with Lena's brother. So I'm starting to watch it, and all of a sudden, I'm like, it's James Hill.
Oh, you're a movie star.
Movie star. So
Leo wasn't the only one who got beat out that year. I was saying, people, where was my nomination for that
I like, seriously. So do you have funny. Like a Screen Actors Guild card?
Right. Jesse went to, Lena's brother Jesse, who wrote the book and everything, was the same year in Shenley with my sister.
Okay.
And they didn't really know each other, but like, they
just of
the people who went there, and Jesse kept in really good touch with one of my teachers at Shenley, a guy named Joe Eamon, who was the film teacher and everything.
Okay.
And so we had known each other, and like when he was filming this movie and everything, we were like, oh, everybody's being extras, you should just come and, And it was so weird. So this was the weird part, this is after Shenley had closed. So, nobody had been...
This is about, 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
But we had snuck into Shenley all the time after it closed, but that was a different story.
Okay.
So, officially on paper, it had been closed for years,
Right.
And so nobody had seen it or really been back in and everything since. And so here come I, still managed to have a key ring, put on, my Letterman sweater, and was like, I'm back, everybody, you know what I mean?
Did you bring your asbestos mask?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, right. So I was like, asbestos. So I was like, and it was really fun. So, we got to be extras in the movie, and it was, so surreal because it was open for a couple months. There were, 400 or 500 people in there being extras as students and everything. And we were back in the cafeteria, and it was just so surreal to be back there. And, it was really fun to be in a movie. And also filming movies is terrible. We were
because
in there.
Because the downtime?
Yeah, no, just the time in general that you put in the scenes that they end up cutting. It was.
So you had other scenes?
Yeah, we were in, I was in, I think 3 or 4. And then I had 2 more that got cut that I was in.
Really?
Yeah. And
so there's cutting room floor footage
of me in the auditorium looking sad. You know what I mean?
Are you supposed to be a student?
Yeah. So I was I'm at that point I was younger than most people who play students in movies. You know what I mean? What's the age now? I feel like it's 27 to 36. They let you play a high schooler.
Right.
So I was still in my early 20s when this was happening. So yeah, and we played a student. I was a background student, and then I got to make I didn't get any lines, so I got to make a poignant look. So there's this one scene where
Can you reenact it?
Is
Ooh, good one.
So the main dude,
that is a poignant look.
he got caught in the class with marijuana or something, and he said, I swear I didn't put it in my bag or something like that. And me and the girl who were sitting on either side of him in the classroom look at each other what crap, So there's a moment, and I get to have my little scene in the movie, and I'm oh well, I want to thank the Academy first of all for everything they've done. these roles are tough to find these days.
I mean,
it was a lot of fun. What did you think?
awesome.
I mean, when you watched it.
Yeah, I had, first I had two reactions. One was, oh my God, it's James. I can't believe it. Wow. And then, to your scene, I was like, he just got to play himself.
Yeah, I was just playing me and James Hill as
cool
James
start.
Hill,
James
circa
Hill.
2006. That was like it. But it was a lot of fun.
Because the face you made was like, the face you made.
Yeah, let's go school. Here's me in a book bag. It was a lot of fun.
As for the movie, I thought it was, it was a great movie.
That was a great movie.
And I think actually, as Pittsburgh movies go, and probably, because, people like yourself and Jesse, like it was, I think, one of the best depictions of Pittsburgh.
I agree. It was, I'm like a stickler for like reality. So I get so annoyed in Pittsburgh movies, like I think of The Dark Knight Rises where they're racing through Gotham City,
Right.
AKA driving in circles up and down Smithfield Street, like 25 times. Like I thought it was very authentic to Pittsburgh, and mostly they got like it was about the neighborhoods. I come to think, I don't even think there was like a shot of downtown.
No.
And I think that says something. It wasn't about the suburbanite or western, like, oh, downtown on the north side. You know what I mean? Like it was about they like lived in Bloomfield or Polish Hill and stuff, and were hanging out in like Oakland, and that's like a thing that I think makes it real is when you grow up here, maybe a little bit less for you, like in the suburbs. Like I never went downtown, like, you know what I mean? Like I went downtown on Bring Your Child to Work Day,
Right.
You know what I mean? And like maybe once for a light up night, but when you like grow up here, you don't just
not a
like
thing.
Yeah, you don't hang out downtown. You hang out
Yeah.
in Highland Park and in Squirrel Hill, and you jump the fence at Highland Park Pool as a kid.
Those
I
things
thought it
that
was really
kids
authentic.
do in their neighborhoods.
Yeah, in their neighborhoods, and that's it was a neighborhood movie, and I really appreciate neighborhood movies more so than
I thought it was really special in that regards. I mean, like the one that came to mind too is was it Wonder Boys with
Wonder Boys.
I'm looking at David for cinema. He's like, I don't know for cinematic connections, but Wonder Boys with Michael Douglas.
In
I think it was a
Pittsburgh.
Michael. I'm not going to quote it anymore, but basically they did some shooting in Friendship, which I would say is probably the closest to what Jesse was able to do, but I think Jesse kind of like.
Oh, he surprised it. And it was it was like an indie hit. Like it won like all these random indie awards. And
I'm gonna have to get it from the library.
You should go to the Carnegie
Specifically
Library.
from the library.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna order it as soon as we're done.
From the library. Nowhere financially involved, but from the library.
That's right. And how would you do that? Would you use
I would use the library
library?
app, right on the phone.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Shenley, what a place. I love you guys can appreciate too, like the era of government where we built massive things like that, and we built buildings like this buildings, and they were meant to, inspire the people. Shenley, its motto, it was inscribed in the auditorium, was meant to inspire. You were meant to enter to learn, but go forth to serve.
Wow.
That was our motto.
That's deep.
You were supposed to go there, enjoy your time, learn, and then it was about leaving and making
An
the world better.
impact. That's fundamental. I mean, you guys had a thing actually, a couple weeks ago. Just to pick up on that maybe for a second, to talk about work for a minute. The Biophilic Cities workshop that you put together.
Oh yeah. James was there.
James was there.
Popped up.
And you guys were talking about this is a great idea maybe, is the flower show.
Yes. The
back
City County Building
Yeah.
Flower Show.
Tell us a little bit about that, the workshop, and then like maybe some of the thoughts that you had about the flower show.
Well, so Biophilic Cities is a network that the city of Pittsburgh now belongs to. So we joined Biophilic Cities in 2016, and it's run by Tim Beatley, who's a pretty well-known professor out of the University of Virginia. So he happened to be in town for an event at the Phipps Conservatory a couple weeks ago, and we brought him in to do a workshop. So the idea of Biophilic Cities is that it's designing to connect people to nature. So, events or buildings. So we kind of got about 40, I would say, city employees from different departments. We had city planning, the mayor's office. Who else do we have? DPW was there. And so we all looked at different projects and tried to figure out how we could incorporate biophilic design into those projects. So we looked at a streetscape. We looked at a facilities building that the facilities division is going to be doing in a park. We looked at, some parks planning, and then we also looked at the city-county building, so that first floor, which was kind of the group that James was in. So I don't know if you want to talk about it a little bit.
What are some of the big thoughts that you have for the city-county building?
Back in the day, we used to do, the building, was designed to function as a grand public space,
Right.
I think we've, in general, suffered from afterthought when it comes to its placement. Like in other cities, City Hall is like the focal point, all the roads
and physical location.
Yeah, it's
downtown.
physical location.
Okay.
It was designed to be a grand public space, but I think its physical location has hampered that over the years,
Yeah.
In Philadelphia, all the roads lead to City Hall,
That's
right. Like San Francisco, there's, they have like a national mall leading up to it. A lot of city halls are by nature cemented in grand monumental places, or there's at the very minimum like a City Hall park or plaza across the street from them or something.
Oh, wouldn't that be
That's
nice?
my big dream.
Instead of that parking lot.
Instead of that great parking lot.
Yeah.
So back in the 70s,
If I win the Powerball, by the way, that's
what you're gonna
You're
do.
buying it.
I'm buying it.
Well, for what amount, or no matter what? If you win $1 million, Grant's going to give it only to this project.
I mean, then I'll buy like a little plot.
Yeah, just a parcel.
like a spot.
Yeah,
and maybe just roll out like some sod.
You could do it right in the middle, like Mount Oliver.
Yeah, just like Mount Oliver.
Just like the Mount Oliver of the parking lot.
Well, just why we haven't dug a trench around them and been done with it beyond me.
I call Mount Oliver the Vatican. It's
Yeah.
like or Liechtenstein or something
Totally.
like that.
It's just as beautiful as Vatican City.
Particularly this
Just as
time of
beautiful.
year. But no, so it's
so-
physical place though. Like,
Yeah, and so anyway, it's designed to be a public place where the public is meant to come and enjoy, and we've gotten better at that in recent years. But back in the 70s, when the city ran FIPS, they came and erected these beautiful, gorgeous flower shows that ran down the center of the main hall.
Wow.
And it was beautiful, and really, I mean, I've showed you guys some of it. It's truly gorgeous, and if we find some money,
Yeah.
people will complain about allergies, but we can bring some flowers back in here.
Yeah, I mean, but you also did something great this year, so you're the guy that's up to it. I mean, you brought...
You said up to it.
Yeah, you brought the gingerbread houses,
Yes,
and you saved that.
Which I am very proud to announce here today for the 15th time. There was not a single roach sighting
Oh, nice.
at the end of the gingerbread house display and competition.
That's amazing.
Stayed awake at night.
Stayed awake at night.
Waiting,
With your raid can.
waiting for the call that, everybody hated me because roaches had infested every office on the first floor. I waited desperately each morning to get that email that, I was done. Not a single roach.
Not a single roach. That's
Not a single
awesome.
roach. Yeah, but, I just to make this place is meant to be the people's place. And, we've been doing stuff with getting more tours in here with doors open and stuff. We've had... Each October, 2,000 people have come through and toured the staterooms in the mayor's office and everything. And easily, early estimates, we think at least 50,000 people came through the course of the gingerbread house display. The security guards did end up hating me because, we couldn't imagine
Facilitate that.
Well, we couldn't imagine how many people would come, but there were lines down 4th Grant Street some
Did you get a
nights,
head
and-
count on the gingerbread house?
So they said they easily seen minimum 2,000 people each Saturday and Sunday from November through January. And then, hundreds. I mean, you guys are during the workday. At night, it would start filling up again and everything.
Yeah, it was funny to leave work and then see a line of people trying to get
to
into
get
work.
in. And you're like, move, get out of here.
I'm out of here.
Get out of the way. Yeah. But, just working with stuff to make this place more represented. It's supposed, city halls, I think, are also like that. You're supposed to feel as if they are gathering places, and ours is getting there, but it really doesn't.
And stars to introduce it to people. I think that it is a public space and a people space.
It is. It's meant to be a people space.
Right. So with maybe a couple final thoughts, I guess. I mean, what is that type of opportunity to do what would it take to bring the flower show?
$50,000.
That's it.
Yeah, we can pull it off for $50K.
That's like some strip tickets and spaghetti dinners, and
we could fill it off for $50K. Whether FIPS would be as involved, I would want to work with. I don't want them to feel like they compete or anything, but we are their landlord, so I also kind of don't care. But
Is there an opportunity to co-opt all their Cuba plants? Aren't they changing out of Hawaii, I think?
only if they're in violation of their
So
lease.
they have a Cuba room
Yeah.
that they've been curating, I think, the
It's
past
been a year.
3
Yeah,
years.
it's been several years now.
I think I want to say it's every 3 years. So they sent a bunch of people to Cuba to go figure out what they were going to bring back. And then now they're going to change it over to Hawaii.
If they're in
I think a
violation
couple
of their
people are in
lease, we can
Hawaii.
go in and seize everything.
we're gonna seize the Cuba plants.
Yeah.
So I'm getting the hook here from our production team.
So great segue. I didn't even notice.
So I think what we're going to have to do is do an episode 2 at some date in the future. Have James back to talk about the finding the ways in which we can commandeer the Cuba plants from Phipps, bring more local movies to Pittsburgh's neighborhoods, and a host of great things. Rebecca, I want to thank you. James, I want to thank you as being a guest. This has been a lot of fun, and we look forward to future conversations with you.
Always. It's always good to see you, man.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for listening in to the Grant Street Experience. I'm your host, Grant Ervin. I want to thank Rebecca Kiernan and James Hill for being here with us today. We look forward to seeing you next time with our guest, David Feiner, from the communications team here in the city of Pittsburgh. So looking forward to listening in. Thanks so much, and thanks to the team for putting this together. Talk to you soon.